We start this evening with some internal intrigue in the new Polish parliament. Poland 2050 MP Izabela Bodnar is the wife of Maciej B., who, according to the prosecutor's office, is alleged to have arranged the termination of numerous tax audits at his waste management companies in exchange for what amounts to bribes. The businessman paid tens of thousands of zloty to Szymon Hołownia's Poland 2050 account ahead of the recent parliamentary elections. In total, Izabela Bodnar's husband, sister, and colleague contributed 162,000 zloty to the Poland 2050 party account. Now, the former director of a waste management company and freshly minted deputy has become a member of the Environmental Protection Committee under the new government. This is to the Environment Commission, the commission in charge of giving and drafting any changes to regulations related to waste management. This is just the first question mark in terms of a possible conflict of interest. The question, therefore, arises of whether the Poland 2050 candidate entered the Sejm only in order to represent the interests of companies owned by her husband. Gazeta Polska's findings show that in January 2024, the Chief Inspectorate of Environmental Protection issued 5 permits for cross-border waste shipments to a company called EcoPartner Recycling. The company's vice president is, of course, one of the donors mentioned beforehand, Benjamin Noga, a colleague of Izabela Bodnar. Indeed, as a long-time and experienced manager, I worked at my husband's company to help optimize processes in many areas. Although she stresses that she went into politics to do good things. I came to government to contribute to the return of freedom and democracy to Poland. Izabela Bodnar's husband is still facing 3 charges, one of which is paid patronage. The indictment against him and 8 others, including 2 of his business partners, was filed in the Warsaw District Court a week ago, on February 15th. Interestingly, the case of Izabela Bodnar's husband was also written about by Onet in the context of ABW's actions. Maciej B. was allegedly behind the case of illegal surveillance of the mayor of Lublin, a city where Maciej B.'s companies have a lot of interests. Well, intense competition in the waste management business can be boldly called the garbage war. The problem is that, as in most wars, it's ordinary city residents who lose out when they find themselves living next to a toxic waste dump. We often hear about how some local government signed a contract, but that it just didn't notice the details and didn't notice that it's bad garbage, or that it didn't notice that they approved a landfill in an unsuitable area. Waste companies are pushing hard for their interests, including, very likely, at the very top of government. Investigative journalist Piotr Nistor has announced that more threads in the case will be revealed in the near future. As the deadline set by French farmers approaches, the French government has promised to prepare a new law which would better safeguard farmers' income and strengthen their position in negotiations with retailers and consumer goods companies. French Prime Minister Gabriel Attal announced this today. The farmers themselves have given us their trust. So, for 3 weeks, with my government, we have not stopped acting to live up to this trust with one slogan: we will not fail, we will not betray, we will step up to these responsibilities. Attal made the announcement on updating the so-called Egalim law in his latest speech, aimed at easing tensions with angry farmers ahead of the annual Salon d'Agriculture, a farming trade fair that starts this weekend. While some local grievances vary, farmers' protests, also seen in other European countries, including Poland, have exposed tensions over the impact on farming of the EU's drive to tackle climate change and of opening the door to cheap Ukrainian imports to help Kiev's war effort. In France, farmers have largely suspended their protests following weeks of actions that included blocking highways after Attal promised new measures on February 1st. But the farmers, who say they're not being paid enough and are choked by taxes, green rules, and face unfair competition from abroad, have been pressing the government to show the first results of the emergency measures before the trade fair. One should also note that President Emmanuel Macron and his government are also wary of farmers' growing support for the far right ahead of European Parliament elections in June. A day after the United States vetoed for the third time a draft UN Security Council resolution for a ceasefire in Gaza, displaced Palestinians are having trouble not just finding food, but also water. In the city of Rafah in southern Gaza, men, women, and children waited in long lines on the beach, holding empty bottles and jerry cans, hoping that on this occasion they would return with some water. Many mothers, like Rehma Al-Masri, say they are unable to provide their children with the most basic of human needs. As you can see, this is a war of starvation. There's no water or food or anything. The lack of clean water and nutrition is also causing disease to spread. And Palestinians say that hepatitis A is now proliferating in displacement camps. Already, in hospitals, it's being called the disease of the tents. Since October, the war there has displaced most of Gaza's 2.3 million people, and over 1 million of them are now living in UN shelters or in tents and cardboard boxes in the southernmost tip of the enclave, right up against the border with Egypt. About 1.5 million people are estimated to be crammed into the city of Rafah alone, most of them having fled their homes further north to escape Israel's military onslaught. They may be not safe from the bombings there for much longer, though. Israel expects to continue its full-scale military operations in Gaza for another 6 to 8 weeks as it prepares to mount a ground invasion on the city of Rafah, the city where most of Gaza's civilian population is right now. This has been confirmed by 4 Israeli officials familiar with the strategy. The military chiefs say they will do this to significantly damage Hamas's remaining capabilities, paving the way for a shift to lower-intensity phase of targeted airstrikes and special forces operations. Back in October of 2021, Turkey asked the U.S. to buy 40 Lockheed Martin F-16 fighters, as well as 79 modernization kits for its existing warplanes. The Biden administration backed the $20 billion sale, but there were many objections in Congress over Turkey's human rights record and its delaying of Sweden's NATO bid. In addition, Turkey has been extremely vocal about its absolute disapproval of Israel over its offensive in Gaza, and it continues to call for an immediate ceasefire while criticizing U.S. support for Israel. So it should be no surprise that today, Turkey's first homegrown fifth-generation fighter, dubbed Khan, completed its maiden flight at the Akinci air base near Ankara. Developed under the TFX project initiated in 2016, the Khan represents a significant milestone in Turkey's quest for self-sufficiency in defense manufacturing. The aircraft boasts advanced features characteristic of fifth-generation fighters, including stealth capabilities, internal weapons bays, and state-of-the-art communication systems. It will be powered for now by 2 General Electric F-110 engines. The program's ultimate goal is to ensure Turkey's autonomy in producing advanced combat aircraft, encompassing all aspects, from technology development to manufacturing capabilities. The jet that flew today was a ground test unit. And now, the manufacturer will make 5 more prototypes and then aims for initial delivery of the completed Khan by 2028, with plans to ramp up production to 2 jets per month thereafter. In a TV interview last week, the Ukrainian ambassador to Turkey, Vasil Bodnar, expressed interest in the aircraft. Opposition protesters pelted Albania's government building with petrol bombs and rocks late last night, accusing state officials of involvement in organized crime and corruption after their leader was put under house arrest. More than 1,000 police officers guarding the building stayed in formation behind barriers as protesters threw the projectiles. Several protesters later tore the barriers down, but there were no further scuffles or violence. Thousands of opposition Democratic Party (PD) supporters were protesting the detention of their party's leader, Sali Berisha, who's been under house arrest since December 31st of last year. Berisha, 79, is being investigated for alleged corruption while prime minister between the years 2005 and 2013. Prosecutors have yet to decide whether to file formal charges against Berisha or to drop them. I believe that every Albanian should go out into the street because they have all of the same reasons to protest, which is poverty, crime, unemployment, drugs, and all the economic and social issues. Berisha has denied any wrongdoing and accused Prime Minister Edi Rama of a political vendetta meant to silence opponents. Rama, of course, denies this. The opposition PD accuses Rama of nepotism and corruption, which it says are prompting many young people to emigrate for a better life in Western Europe. Rama, who's in his third term as prime minister, has denied all accusations of corruption. On the day of the protest in Tirana, Prime Minister Rama was away on a working visit to Ankara, where he met with Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan. Well, we end tonight with some business news. Germany is facing a slump in its automotive sector. The gross domestic product of our Western neighbors in the third quarter of 2023 was lower than in the second quarter. While it is impossible to speak of a technical recession just yet, the fact is that Berlin is struggling. Orders are shrinking, and industry and services are stuck in recession-prone territory. So, just in case, the Germans have to prevent competition, even for such small competitors as Poland. Why? Well, because this small competitor, in a few years or decades, could become, and they know this, a viable competitor due to its geographical location, due to its GDP growth, as well as its innovativeness. Poland is one of the world leaders in the production of batteries for electric vehicles. Competition for the market is still ongoing. The German company Bosch is planning a huge investment also in semiconductors, key to the automotive market. Another Tesla factory is also being built in Germany. This investment, first of all, must be profitable. This can't be some really expensive tech. In the context of Izera, or more generally EVs, of course it'd be great if a car like this were produced in Poland. Well, a decision on the production of the Polish electric car Izera will be made by April, and a renegotiation package for the National Reconstruction Plan will be prepared by the end of February. Key here is that the funds set in it for zero-emission transport were supposed to cover the construction of the Izera factory in Jaworzno. However, the Minister of Funds and Regional Policy, Katarzyna Pełczyńska-Nałęcz, does not rule out that instead of electric cars, money from the plan will be reallocated to bicycles. A very important investment decision that is before the Polish state and before the government, whether we invest in the so-called Polish electric car Izera or invest in other opportunities. We have bus factories, for example, electric buses, or companies that are able to produce electric bicycles. Well, Chinese car battery manufacturer CATL withdrew from building a factory in Jaworzno, but completion is still possible with a second investor, a Chinese car maker Geely. But this is where the problem arises. The presence of the Chinese automotive giant will threaten Germany's position here. This has to be considered carefully. It must be based on expert opinions. Politicians, as creators of these sorts of projects, are not ideal. This is a brutal war against economic development. Well, for now, there's no big boom in electric cars in Poland, but drivers in Scandinavia and Western Europe are increasingly opting for electric cars due to incentives offered in large cities. A new brand on the EV market is now Turkish. TOG has been operating since 2018. Now it's introducing a new model. Well, things are not looking too good. Zera is known to be strategic. We, as economists, warned the government that these types of policies will lead to this, and it's already causing a planned GDP growth to be unattainable. Well, it is likely that from 2028, there will be a CO2 tax in Polish cities. It will be paid by all drivers. The Izera project is a great opportunity for Polish industry, for Poland's growth. What's happening now is an attempt to guide the country along a different track, a more ecological track that also fits in with contemporary global trends. As of July 1st, 2024, Warsaw will have a clean transportation zone. There are already several hundred such zones in Europe. This means that cars manufactured before 1997 will not be allowed to enter the capital, and regulations will become stricter in subsequent years.